The ship landed on Prime with a soft thud, and Cole felt his stomach turn. Not from the landing, but from what waited outside. Through the small window, he could see the grand arena rising like a mountain of polished stone and glowing metal. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered there. They had come to watch the trial of worth, and Cole had come to represent humanity. He stood up slowly and checked his simple gray uniform one more time. There were no medals on his chest, no fancy decorations, just the cloth and the man wearing it. Ambassador Cross waited by the door with worry in her eyes. "Cole, you know what happens if we fail here," she said quietly. "Humanity gets expelled from the council. We lose everything we worked for." Cole nodded. He knew. 3 years of fighting for recognition. 3 years of being called primitive and weak by species who had traveled the stars for thousands of years. And now it all came down to him, a soldier with a limp and a quiet voice. "I know," he said, "but someone had to volunteer, no one else did." Looked at him for a long moment. She had seen the reports about Cole. She knew where his scars came from. A colony ship called the Dawn Seeker had caught fire 6 years ago. Cole had been the medic on board. When the airlock jammed, he held it open with his bare hands while 43 colonists escaped. The metal had been so hot that it melted into his skin. He spent 8 months learning to walk again. "Just stay alive," said finally. "That is all I ask." Cole almost smiled. "I will do my best." The doors opened, and Cole stepped onto Prime. The air was thick and warm. The sky above was purple with 3 small suns hanging low on the horizon. Beings of every shape and size moved through the streets toward the arena. Some walked on 2 legs like Cole. Others floated or crawled or moved in ways he could not describe. All of them looked at him as he passed. And all of them saw his scars. The burns covered most of his arms and chest. They crept up his neck and touched the left side of his face. The skin there was rough and uneven, pulled tight in some places and loose in others. He had stopped hiding them years ago. There was no point. A group of tall warriors blocked his path as he approached the arena entrance. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms each and skin like dark armor. Cole recognized them from the briefings. They were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. The largest one stepped forward and looked down at Cole with golden eyes. "This is the human champion," he asked in a voice like grinding stone. Cole met his gaze. "I am." The laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Look at him," he said to his companions. "They send us a broken thing, a creature held together by scar tissue and stubbornness." He leaned closer to Cole. "I am of House Solon. Remember that name, little human. It will be the last thing you hear before I crush you." Cole said nothing. He simply looked studying him the way a medic studies a patient. The big warrior seemed surprised by the silence. "Nothing to say?" asked. "Not yet," Cole replied. He walked past and entered the arena. Inside, the noise was overwhelming. Thousands of spectators filled the seats that rose up toward the purple sky. In the center of it all stood a raised platform where the champions had gathered. Cole counted 12 of them. 12 species sending their finest warriors to compete for power and resources. And at the edge of the platform, looking very small and very alone, was the spot reserved for humanity. Cole took his place. The other champions barely looked at him. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. A delegate from the species, tall and thin with silver skin, pointed at Cole and whispered something to her companion. They both smiled in a way that Cole understood perfectly. He was a joke to them, a weak creature from a weak world. His scars were proof that humans were fragile, breakable, not worth the space they took up in the galaxy. Cole stood quietly and waited. A gong sounded somewhere deep in the arena and the crowd fell silent. From a door carved with ancient symbols, a figure emerged. He was old beyond measure, his body bent with time, his skin the color of aged bronze. This was Elder, the judge who had overseen the trial of worth for over 300 years. Champions, Elder said, his voice somehow filling the entire arena without effort. You have come to prove the worth of your people. For 50 cycles, this trial has determined which species deserve power and which deserve nothing. Today, 13 of you stand here. In 5 days, only one will remain standing. Cole listened carefully. The trial consists of 5 challenges, Elder continued. Strength, endurance, strategy, mercy, and sacrifice. Fail any challenge and you will die or be expelled forever. There are no second chances. There is no retreat. Do you understand? The champions answered as one. We understand. Elder's ancient eyes moved across the platform. They stopped on Cole for a moment longer than the others. Something flickered there. Curiosity, perhaps, or pity. The first challenge begins at dawn, Elder said. You will face the test of strength. Each of you will battle a creature bred to destroy your kind. Victory means survival. Defeat means death. He paused. Prepare yourselves. The gong sounded again, and the champions began to leave the platform. Walked past Cole and deliberately bumped his shoulder, nearly knocking him down. Sleep well, Broken One said. Tomorrow you die. Cole steadied himself and watched the walk away. Around him, the other champions flexed their muscles and tested their weapons and spoke loudly about how easily they would win. Cole had no muscles to flex, no weapons to test, no boasts to make. Found him later in the small room assigned to human delegates. The council is already placing bets, she said. They give you the worst odds of any champion in the last 100 years. Cole sat by the window and looked out at the purple sky. What creature do they have planned for me? Something called a thornback, poisonous spines, 6 legs, very aggressive. Hesitated. Cole, maybe we should withdraw. Maybe this was a mistake. Cole turned to look at her. The scars on his face caught the light of the 3 suns. Those people out there think they know what strength is. They think it is muscles and claws and armor. They think I am weak because I have been broken. And what do you think? Asked. Cole turned back to the window. Somewhere out there, a creature called a thornback waited to kill him. Tomorrow, the entire galaxy would watch him face it. I think, Cole said quietly, that they do not understand humans at all. The sun set slowly over Prime, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In his small room, Cole closed his eyes and remembered the 43 people who had walked through that burning airlock. He remembered the smell of his own flesh cooking against the metal. He remembered choosing not to let go. Tomorrow, the trial of worth would begin. Cole was ready. The first sun rose over Prime, and the arena filled with noise. Thousands of spectators pressed against the railings to watch the test of strength. This was what they had come for: blood and victory and the screams of the defeated. Cole stood at the edge of a circular pit filled with sand and broken stone pillars. The other champions had already taken their positions around similar pits. Each one would face a creature designed to kill their specific species. The faced massive beasts with acid blood. The faced hunters that could see through their silver skin. And Cole faced the thornback. He looked down into his pit and saw it for the first time. The creature was about the size of a large dog, but wrong in every way. 6 legs ended in curved claws. Its body was covered in spines that glistened with poison. 2 black eyes stared up at Cole with pure hatred. It paced back and forth, leaving trails in the sand, waiting for its prey to come down. Impressive, is it not? A voice asked. Cole turned to see standing nearby. She was a human journalist, sent to broadcast the trial back to Earth. Her camera drone floated beside her, recording everything. You are the one they call the broken champion, said. There was disappointment in her voice. I expected someone more, well, impressive. Cole looked at her for a moment. Sorry to disappoint you. The viewers back home are worried, continued. The other champions look like warriors. You look like someone who should be in a hospital. Cole did not argue. He simply turned back to the pit and watched the thornback. It was limping slightly on its back left leg. Its ribs showed through its skin. Someone had starved this creature. Someone had beaten it. They had made it angry and desperate so it would put on a good show. The gong sounded. "Let the test of strength begin," Elder announced from his platform above the arena. "Champions, enter your pits, face your beasts, show us your worth." One by one, the champions dropped into their pits, landed with a crash that shook the ground, and immediately charged at his opponent. The crowd roared as he tore into the massive creature with all four arms. Blood sprayed across the sand. The other champions followed his example, attacking their beasts with weapons and claws and raw power. Cole lowered himself into his pit slowly. The sand was warm under his boots. The thornback stopped packing and focused on him completely. Its spines rattled with a sound like bones clicking together. "Come on, human," someone shouted from the crowd. "Fight it, do something." Cole did not fight. Instead, he began removing his armor. The crowd went quiet with confusion. His camera drone zoomed in closer. Even Elder leaned forward on his platform, watching with ancient eyes. Cole set his chest plate on the sand, then his arm guards, then his gloves. He stood in the pit wearing nothing but his simple gray shirt, and then he pulled that off too. His scars caught the morning light. Burns covered his chest and arms and back. The skin was rough and twisted, colored in shades of pink and white and angry red. He looked like something that had been through fire and somehow survived. The thornback hissed and raised its spines. Cole sat down in the sand. The crowd exploded with laughter and mockery. "He has given up," someone shouted. The human surrenders. Covered in the blood of his defeated beast, looked over at Cole's pit and shook his head with disgust. But Cole was not surrendering. He was waiting. The thornback circled him slowly. It was confused. Every instinct told it to attack, but this prey was not acting like prey. It was not running. It was not fighting. It was just sitting there, exposed and calm. Minutes passed. The other champions finished their battles and climbed out of their pits. They stood with their trophies, the bodies of their defeated beasts, and watched Cole with amusement. The crowd grew restless. This was not entertainment. This was just a man sitting in dirt. But Cole kept watching the thornback. He saw how it favored that back leg. He saw the wounds hidden beneath its spines where handlers had struck it. He saw a creature that had been tortured into becoming a weapon. An hour passed. The thornback was tired now. It had been starved for days and had spent all its energy packing and threatening. Its movements grew slower. Its hisses grew weaker. Finally, confused and exhausted, it lay down in the sand a few feet from Cole. Very slowly, Cole reached out his hand. The thornback flinched but did not attack. Cole moved closer inch by inch until his fingers touched the creature's side. It trembled but stayed still. Cole could feel the poison spines pressing against his skin. One wrong move and they would pierce him. The venom would kill him in minutes. He found what he was looking for. A spine near the creature's shoulder had broken and twisted inward. Every time the thornback moved, it stabbed into its own flesh. Cole gripped the broken spine carefully and pulled it free. The thornback made a sound no one in the arena had ever heard before. It was soft and low, almost like a purr. The creature shifted closer to Cole, pressing against his body like a pet seeking comfort. The arena was completely silent. Elder stood up slowly. "The challenge is complete," he announced. "The human champion has conquered his beast." "Conquered?" shouted. "He did nothing. He sat in the dirt and waited. That is not strength, that is cowardice." Elder looked at them with eyes that had seen 10,000 champions come and go. "The rules state that each champion must prove their strength by facing their beast. They do not say how." He gestured toward Cole's pit. "The creature is subdued. The human stands unharmed. The challenge is met." His four hands clenched into fists, but he said nothing more. Cole climbed out of the pit. The thornback followed him, scrambling up the wall and landing at his side. It pressed against his leg and made that soft purring sound again. "You cannot keep it," one of the judges said. "The beasts are property of the arena." Cole looked down at the creature that had been tortured and starved and broken. It looked back up at him with eyes that held no more hatred, only trust. "Then I will buy it," Cole said. Pushed through the crowd, her camera drone following. "That was incredible," she said, her voice different now, less disappointed, more curious. "How did you know that would work?" Cole stroked the thornback's rough head. "I did not know, but I saw a creature in pain, and where I come from, strength is not just about breaking things." He looked up at the champions who stood with their bloody trophies and their dead beasts. "Sometimes strength is knowing what not to break." The second challenge was announced that afternoon. The Corridor of Elements would test their endurance through 10 miles of extreme heat, freezing cold, electrical storms, and crushing pressure. It would begin at dawn the next day. Approached Cole as the crowd dispersed. "You won nothing today, human. You cheated. The next challenge will not be so easy, and your little pet will not save you." Cole met the golden eyes without fear. "We will see." That night Cole sat in his small room with the thornback curled at his feet. The creature's breathing was slow and peaceful. Its wounds were clean and bandaged. For the first time in its life, it was not in pain. "Came to check on him. The council is talking about you," she said. "Not all of it is bad anymore. Some of them are starting to wonder if they misjudged humanity." Cole scratched behind the thornback's ear. "Good," he said. "Let them wonder." Outside, the three suns set over Prime. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new pain, new chances for Cole to fail and for humanity to lose everything. But tonight, a man and a broken creature rested together. And somewhere in the galaxy, people were beginning to understand that strength came in many forms. The thornback purred softly, and Cole smiled for the first time in years. The corridor of elements stretched before them like a wound in the earth. 10 miles of suffering, carved into the bedrock of Prime by ancient machines. Cole stood at the entrance with the other surviving champions, studying the path ahead. The thornback pressed against his leg, unwilling to leave his side. "Your pet cannot accompany you," a judge announced. "The rules forbid outside assistance." Cole knelt down and looked into the creature's black eyes. "Stay here," he said softly. "I will come back." The thornback whined but did not follow as Cole walked toward the corridor entrance. The other champions were already preparing themselves. They flexed their armored bodies. They adjusted their temperature suits. Everyone had some advantage, some natural gift that would help them survive what was coming. Cole had nothing but his scars and his stubbornness. "Begin," Elder commanded. The champions ran forward. The first section was heat. Walls of fire rose on both sides of the narrow path. The temperature climbed higher and higher until the very air seemed to burn. Cole felt his skin tighten, felt the old scars protest against the familiar sensation. He had been burned before. He knew this pain. The other champions sprinted through, using their speed and their natural resistances to minimize exposure. Cole did not sprint. He could not with his damaged leg. Instead, he walked at a steady pace, breathing slowly, conserving his energy for what lay ahead. By the time he emerged from the heat section, he was in last place. His skin was red and raw, but he was alive. The cold came next. The corridor dropped into darkness and the temperature plunged below freezing. Ice formed on Cole's eyebrows and lips. His fingers went numb. His leg, already weak, began to shake. One of the champions collapsed ahead of him. Her silver skin had turned blue and she was not moving. Cole stopped beside her and checked for a pulse. It was there, faint but present. He pulled off his outer jacket and wrapped it around her, then kept walking. "What are you doing?" shouted from somewhere ahead. "Leave her, she is finished." Cole did not answer. He just kept walking, one step at a time, until he emerged from the cold section into the electrical storms. Lightning split the air around him. The ground shook with thunder. Other champions dodged and weaved, using their superior reflexes to avoid the strikes. Cole watched the pattern. He counted the seconds between bolts, and then he ran. Not fast, not gracefully, but steadily moving through the gaps in the lightning like a man crossing a busy street. A bolt struck the ground inches from his foot. Another singed his hair, but he made it through. The final section was pressure. The walls closed in and the ceiling dropped low. The air grew thick and heavy, pressing down on Cole's chest like a giant hand. Some champions had bodies built for this, designed to withstand the crushing weight. Cole's body was soft and damaged. He crawled. Inch by inch, he dragged himself through the narrowing space. His ribs creaked. His vision blurred. The weight pressed down on his scars, finding every weakness in his broken body. But Cole had learned something about himself in that burning airlock 6 years ago. He had learned that the human body could survive far more than anyone expected, as long as the mind refused to stop. He emerged from the corridor in 9th place out of 12 survivors. 3 champions had failed. The woman he had stopped to help was one of them. She had been carried out by medical teams and would live, but her trial was over. "You wasted time on her," said later, as Cole recovered in the medical bay. "You could have placed higher." Cole winced as a healer treated his new burns. She would have died. "She was your enemy." "She was a person," Cole looked at with tired eyes. "That is the difference between humans and everyone else here. We see people first, enemies second." The strategy challenge came the next day. Each champion was placed in a simulation room and given an impossible scenario. A colony ship carrying 2 different species was about to explode. There was only enough time to save one group. The champions had to choose who would live and who would die. Cole watched the simulation unfold on the screens before him. 2 groups of innocent beings, both equally deserving of life. The other champions made their choices quickly, calculating which species was more valuable, which alliance would benefit them more. Cold logic, simple math. Cole refused. "There must be another way," he said to the simulation. "There is no other way," the computer responded. "Choose." Cole studied the colony ship's layout. He looked at the structural supports, the escape routes, the timing of the explosion, and he found something the designers had never intended. "If I overload the primary support beam here," Cole said, pointing to a section of the ship, "the explosion will be redirected. Both groups can reach the escape pods in time." "That section is where you are standing," the computer noted. "You would die." "Yes," Cole said, "I know." He made the choice. In the simulation, Cole died and both groups of colonists escaped safely. The judges argued for hours about whether this counted as success or failure. Cole had not completed the challenge as designed. He had broken the rules, found a loophole, and sacrificed himself instead of others. Elder made the final decision. The challenge was to show strategic thinking. The human found victory where we designed none. That is the very definition of strategy. He passes. The Mercy challenge was the hardest. Cole was brought to a dark room where a creature waited for him. She was tall and pale, with eyes that seemed to look through his flesh into his mind. Her name was, and she was, a telepath who had broken stronger minds than Cole's. "Your challenge is simple," said. "I will enter your mind. I will find your worst memories. If you survive without breaking, you pass." Cole sat down and closed his eyes. "Do what you must." Reached into his mind and expected to find fear. She expected weakness. She expected the soft, fragile thoughts of a creature from a soft, fragile world. What she found was fire. She saw Cole standing in a burning corridor, metal melting around him. She felt the pain as he grabbed the airlock door, felt the skin on his hands cooking against the superheated surface. She heard the screams of the colonists behind him, the voices begging him to hold on just a little longer. She saw him hold on. 43 people passed through that door while Cole burned. 43 lives saved because one man refused to let go. And beneath the pain, beneath the fire and the melting flesh, found something that made her pull back in shock. No regret, no anger, no self-pity. Only the faces of 3 colonists who had not made it to the door in time. 3 people Cole could not save. He carried their memory like stones in his chest, not because he blamed himself, but because he refused to let them be forgotten. From his mind, and found that her hands were shaking. "His mind is not weak," she announced to the waiting council. "It is a fortress built from suffering, and every stone is someone he loved enough to bleed for." Cole opened his eyes. "Did I pass?" Looked at him with new respect. "You passed. I have never seen a mind like yours, human. Where others would have built walls of anger or denial, you built something different, something I do not have a word for." "Hope," Cole said quietly. "We call it hope." That night only 2 champions remained, Cole of Earth and of House Solon. Tomorrow would bring the final challenge, the test of sacrifice, and only one of them would walk away as the winner. The Thornback found Cole in his room and curled up beside him. It had waited for 3 days, refusing food and water, watching the corridor entrance for its human to return. Cole stroked its rough head and thought about what he might have to sacrifice. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he whispered to the creature that had become his only friend in the galaxy, "I need you to know that you saved me as much as I saved you." The Thornback purred, and Cole closed his eyes. One more challenge remained, one more test. And everything was about to change. The Chamber of Sacrifice was the oldest room on Prime. Its walls were carved from black stone that seemed to drink the light. Ancient symbols covered every surface, telling stories of champions who had stood here before, thousands of them, and the sacrifices they had made. Cole walked into the chamber with the Thornback at his side. The creature had refused to stay behind, and the judges had stopped trying to separate them. Across the room stood with his 4 arms crossed over his chest. There was smiling. He had been waiting for this moment. The entire Galactic Council filled the seats above them. Every species, every delegate, every being of importance had come to watch the final challenge. They whispered and pointed at Cole, at his scars, at the strange creature that followed him like a shadow. Elder entered through a door that had not been there a moment before. The old judge moved slowly, his ancient body bent with the weight of centuries, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "Champions," he said, "you have proven your strength, your endurance, your strategy, and your capacity for mercy. One test remains, the test of sacrifice." He paused. "To show the worth of your people, you must give up something precious, something that costs you true pain to lose. The chamber will judge the sincerity of your sacrifice. It cannot be fooled. It cannot be tricked. Give something that matters or fail." Stepped forward first. He was eager, confident. From his belt he drew a blade that seemed to glow with inner fire. The crowd gasped. Even Cole, who knew little of culture, understood that this was something special. "This is the blade of House Solon," announced. "It has been in my family for 9,000 years. Every great warrior of my bloodline has carried it into battle. It is my inheritance, my legacy, my birthright." He placed the blade on the altar at the center of the chamber. The black stone glowed with soft golden light, accepting the sacrifice. "It is genuine," Elder said. "The sacrifice is accepted." The crowd cheered for 9,000 years of history given up for glory. It was the kind of sacrifice they understood, the kind they respected. Then all eyes turned to Cole. He stood alone in his simple gray uniform. No ancient weapons, no family treasures, no inheritance of any kind. The delegates from older species exchanged knowing glances. The human had nothing to give. His species was too young, too poor, too weak to have anything of value. "What can the human sacrifice?" someone called out. "He has nothing." Laughed. "Look at him. A broken creature from a broken world. He cannot compete with the glory of House Solon. He should surrender now and save himself the embarrassment. Cole did not respond to the insults. He was looking at the thornback. The creature looked back at him with those black eyes. It did not understand what was happening. It only knew that its human was troubled, and it pressed closer against his leg, offering what comfort it could. Was watching from the council seats above. Her hands were gripped tight on the railing. She knew Cole had nothing to give, nothing except the strange beast that followed him everywhere. "No," she whispered. "Cole, please no." Cole knelt down and placed his hands on the thornback's rough head. The creature purred softly, trusting completely. The crowd leaned forward, expecting violence. They thought they knew what was coming. The human would kill the beast on the altar. He would sacrifice the only valuable thing he had. It was the logical choice, the practical choice. Cole reached up to his ear and removed his translation device. The small piece of technology was the only thing that allowed him to communicate with the galaxy. Without it, he could not understand anyone, could not speak to anyone, could not participate in council meetings or make alliances or defend humanity's interests. He would be alone in a universe of voices he could not comprehend. He placed the translation device around the thornback's neck. The creature looked up at him, confused. Cole spoke to it in human words that no one in the chamber could understand. His voice was soft and gentle, full of emotion that needed no translation. He was saying goodbye. Then Cole stood up and walked to the chamber door. He opened it, and he let the thornback go. The creature hesitated at the threshold. It looked back at Cole, whining softly. It did not want to leave, but Cole pointed firmly toward the corridors beyond, toward the wild spaces of Prime where a thornback could live free. The creature made one last sound, a mix of confusion and sorrow, and then it ran into the darkness. Cole turned back to face the chamber. He was silent now, truly silent. Without his translation device, he could not understand a single word being spoken. He was completely alone. The black stone of the altar blazed with light. Not golden light like sacrifice. This was white, pure and blinding, filling the entire chamber. The ancient symbols on the walls began to glow. The delegates shielded their eyes. Even Elder stepped back in surprise. "This is impossible," someone shouted. "What is happening?" Elder stared at the altar with wonder on his ancient face. "The chamber has not responded like this in over 3,000 years," he said. "The human sacrifice, it is the most sincere the chamber has ever recorded." Smile had disappeared. "He gave up a pet," the snarled. "A worthless beast. How is that greater than 9,000 years of history?" Elder turned to face the council. His voice carried through the chamber, strong and clear. He did not sacrifice the creature. He sacrificed his connection to everything else, his ability to speak, to be understood, to belong. He gave up his place in the galaxy so that a creature he loved could be free. The light from the altar slowly faded, but its warmth remained. "Consider what he gave up," Elder continued. "Sacrificed an object, a treasure with history and value, yes, but still just a thing. The human sacrificed himself, his voice, his future, his chance to ever truly be part of our civilization, and he did it not for glory or for power. He did it for mercy, for love." Cole stood alone in the center of the chamber. He could not understand the words being spoken around him. He could only see the faces, the shock, the confusion, and slowly something else. "Respect." Elder walked toward Cole. The ancient judge moved slowly, each step deliberate. When he reached the human, he did something that no judge had done in 10,000 years of the trial of worth. He bowed. The chamber went completely silent. Then one by one the delegates began to stand. The rows first, their silver skin catching the last traces of light from the altar. Then species Cole had never met, beings from worlds he would never see, all rising to their feet. Was crying. She could not help it. Tears ran down her face as she watched the galaxy show respect to the silent human standing alone in the chamber below. Did not stand. His 4 hands were clenched into fists at his sides. His golden eyes burned with fury. He had come here to prove the superiority of his people, and instead he had been overshadowed by a broken creature from a primitive world. "This is not over," growled. But even he knew it was. Cole looked up at the standing delegates, at the glowing altar, at the ancient symbols that told stories of sacrifice and worth. He could not hear their praise. He could not understand their words of respect. But he could see their faces, and that was enough. Somewhere in the wild corridors of Prime, a thornback was running free. It carried a translation device around its neck like a collar, a gift from the only being who had ever shown it kindness. And in the chamber of sacrifice, a human warrior had just changed everything. Cole closed his eyes and allowed himself to hope. Tomorrow would bring the judgment. Tomorrow the council would decide what his victory meant for humanity. But tonight, Cole had proven something that the galaxy would never forget. True sacrifice was not about what you destroyed. It was about what you let go. 3 days passed after the trial of worth ended. Cole spent those days in silence. Without his translation device, he could not communicate with anyone. He sat in his small room, staring out at the purple sky, waiting for a judgment he would not be able to hear. Came to visit him often. She would sit beside him and speak, even though she knew he could not understand. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she just held his hand. Cole appreciated the company, even if the words meant nothing. On the morning of the 3rd day, something scratched at his door. Cole opened it and found the thornback sitting in the corridor. The creature's black eyes were bright with recognition. Around its neck, Cole's translation device hung like a collar. "Hope," Cole said softly. He had named the creature during those long nights when it was his only companion. Hope, because that was what it had given him. The thornback bounded into the room and pressed against Cole's legs. It was purring loudly, that strange rumbling sound that Cole had grown to love. Somehow, against all odds, the creature had found its way back to him. Cole knelt down and removed the translation device from Hope's neck. He placed it in his ear, and suddenly the world came rushing back. He could hear the sounds of the city outside, the voices of passing delegates, the hum of machinery and the whisper of wind. "You came back," Cole said to Hope. "You understood what I was doing and you came back anyway." Hope purred and licked his hand. Burst through the door a moment later. "Cole, the council is assembled. They are going to announce the results. You need to come now." She stopped when she saw the thornback. "How did it get back here?" Cole smiled. I think Hope had something to say about being let go. The Grand Council chamber was full when Cole arrived. Every seat was taken. Every delegate was present. The weight of history pressed down on the room like a physical force. Cole walked to the center of the chamber with Hope at his side. The creature had refused to leave him, and Cole had stopped trying to make it. Some bonds were stronger than freedom. Elder stood at the front of the chamber, his ancient face unreadable. Behind him, the other judges waited in silence. "Cole of Earth," Elder said, "you have completed the trial of worth. You have faced 5 challenges and emerged victorious in all of them. The council has deliberated and we have reached a decision." Cole stood straight despite the pain in his leg. Hope pressed against his side, offering silent support. "In 10,000 years of the trial, no champion has ever won the way you did," Elder continued. "You did not defeat your opponents through strength or speed or superior biology. You defeated them by showing us something we had forgotten: compassion, mercy, the willingness to sacrifice yourself for others." The chamber was silent. Every eye was fixed on the human and his strange companion. "The Council hereby grants humanity full membership in the Galactic Alliance, permanent seating rights, Full voting privileges. Elder paused. This normally takes centuries to achieve. You have earned it in 5 days. The delegates erupted in discussion. Some were pleased, others were furious. Stood in the back of the chamber, his 4 arms crossed, his golden eyes burning with resentment. But even he remained silent. Was crying again, happy tears this time. She rushed forward and embraced Cole, squeezing him tight despite his injuries. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." Cole hugged her back. "Humanity did it," he said. "I just showed them who we are." The who had entered his thoughts during the Mercy Challenge approached him after the ceremony. "I have not stopped thinking about what I saw in your mind," she said. "Your species is very young. Your technology is primitive. But your hearts are stronger than any I have encountered." "Thank you," Cole said. "I wish to withdraw my species' objections to human membership," announced loudly enough for the nearby delegates to hear. "We judged them by their bodies. We should have judged them by their hearts." More delegates approached throughout the day. Some offered congratulations. Others asked questions about humanity, about Earth, about how such a young species had produced someone like Cole. He answered as best he could, but hope was growing restless at his side. It was who came last. The warrior pushed through the crowd and stood before Cole. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then did something unexpected. He bowed his head. "I mocked you," said. "I called you broken. I said you had nothing of value." He looked up at Cole with eyes that held something new, something like shame. "I was wrong." Cole nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that." "How did you learn it?" asked. "This strength you have, this gentleness. How does a creature who has been hurt so badly still choose to be kind?" Cole thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the burning airlock and the 43 people who walked through it. He thought about the 3 who did not make it. He thought about the thornback, starving and beaten, that had chosen to trust him anyway. "Where I come from," Cole said finally, "the strongest people I ever knew were the ones who kept being kind after the world gave them every reason not to be. My scars taught me that. Every one of them is a reminder that someone else got to go home." Said nothing for a moment. Then he reached out one of his 4 hands and placed it on Cole's shoulder. It was a gesture of respect an acknowledgement between warriors. "Perhaps," said, "there is more to strength than I understood." He walked away, and Cole watched him go. That evening brought news from Earth. "They want to honor you as a hero," she said. "Parades, medals, everything." Cole was sitting by the window, watching the sun set over Prime. Hope was curled at his feet, purring softly. "No," he said. "No. I do not want parades or medals. I just want transport to the next colony that needs a medic." Cole looked at with tired eyes. "There are people out there who need help. That is all I have ever wanted to do." Smiled sadly. "I should have known you would say that." The next morning, Cole prepared to leave Prime. His bag was small. His belongings were few. Hope padded alongside him as he walked toward the transport dock. A crowd had gathered to see him off. Delegates from a dozen species, beings who had mocked him just days ago, now standing in silence as he passed. Some bowed. Others placed their hands over their hearts in gestures of respect from their home worlds. At the edge of the crowd, a small figure pushed forward. It was a child, no more than a few years old. The child looked up at Cole with wide golden eyes, fascinated by the scars that covered his body. Cole knelt down to meet the child's gaze. "Hello there." The child reached out and touched one of the scars on Cole's arm. Its small fingers traced the rough skin gently, curiously. "Every one of these," Cole said softly, "means someone got to go home." The child looked at him for a moment longer. Then, slowly and carefully, it bowed in the formal way, a gesture reserved for honored warriors, a gesture that said more than words ever could. Cole stood up and continued toward his ship. Elder was waiting at the transport dock. The ancient judge stood alone, watching Cole approach with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "The Council will remember you," Elder said. "Your name will be written in the histories of every species." "I hope they remember more than just me," Cole said. "I hope they remember what humanity taught them today." "And what is that?" Cole looked back at the crowd, at the delegates, at the child who had bowed to him, at the world that had mocked his scars and then learned to respect them. "That the marks we carry tell the story of who we chose to be," Cole said, "not what was done to us." Elder bowed his ancient head. "Then we have learned well." Cole boarded the transport with Hope at his side. Through the window, he watched Prime grow smaller. The arena where he had faced his challenges became a dot. The chamber of sacrifice became invisible. The world that had tested humanity's worth disappeared into the purple sky. But behind him, something had changed. In council chambers across the galaxy, delegates were speaking about the human who had won through kindness. In training grounds on distant worlds, young warriors were questioning what strength really meant. In the minds of beings who had lived for centuries, new thoughts were taking root. Hope curled up on the seat beside Cole and purred softly. The scars on Cole's body caught the light of distant stars. He was still broken in all the ways he had always been, still limping, still quiet, still just one human. But behind him, history had changed forever. And ahead of him, there were people who needed help. Cole closed his eyes and let the ship carry him toward the stars. He was ready for whatever came next.